You are now watching the He Say, She Say podcast, sports show, whichever one you feel comfortable calling it, honestly. The name will be changing soon. So, but before we get started, let's send a shout out to the sponsors right at the bottom of the screen. We are back in the studio at Fitboxer Studio. So you already know the drill. You want photo shoots, music video, podcast space, call the number at the bottom of the screen, 707 Fitboxer. But no, I don't want to go there. You want which one? What sport you want to talk about first, bro?
Let's start off with NFL.
Okay.
Alejandro Villanueva.
Okay. My man's Alejandro Villanueva. I don't know the details as far as why he left. I don't know if it's because they didn't want him, and maybe he's salty because he definitely sounds salty. In his comments that he had to say as far as his former team, but I'm gonna use his direct quotes. I'm assuming it is not as much fun for the receivers because they're not getting all of the catches, and he's talking about the Ravens because they're a run-first offense compared to the Steelers team that he just left. And I continue, they're not getting all of the catches. They're making the TikToks and they're having fun on their social media, and this is pretty much a direct shot at Juju, who is known for doing TikTok videos in the middle of the opposing team's logo on their home field, and that's a lot of disrespect. And he continues to go on to say he looks forward to playing against the Steelers.
Right.
Now, I like this topic because it's actually, although I don't have a horse in the race, it's also one of my favorite rivalries in sports. So with that, how do you feel about his comments?
So I'm gonna actually before I give my stance on, I'm gonna read Smith Schuster. So Smith Schuster actually came out responding.
Oh snap! Yeah, didn't know that.
Yeah, on courtesy of SI.com. Still, Smith Schuster actually responded to Villanueva's comments. He said, "I'm never gonna change for nobody."
Nobody, baby.
It's who I am. I'm authentic. At the end of the day, I'm doing the TikToks and I'm putting stuff on the field. I'm making catches. I'm scoring touchdowns. I'm doing my job. You can't hate me. I'm just winning and having fun. And he also talked about the change in atmosphere. Talking about at one point in my life, I was part of a team where I was with a lot of old guys. He said it with a smile. Now I'm a part of a team where it's a lot of young guys. Villanueva 32 certainly meets the shift from old to young. The shift from old to young. Yep. So here's how I feel about it. First and foremost, as a Ravens fan, as a resident Ravens fan here in Las Vegas, from Baltimore. This is the best rivalry in football, even though the Ravens have only been around since 1996 because it's a hard-hitting physical rivalry.
Yeah.
And when I first heard it, I was like, I kind of chuckled at it. You know what I'm saying? When we talk about adding fuel to the fire, my response is, I feel like it is the best way that you can respond to somebody's comments is not to respond to them unless they're taking a direct personal attack that's affecting your financial situation or it just bothers you that much.
Right.
And so obviously it bothers Juju Smith-Schuster to a point where you felt like you need to
say something. Yeah.
Now, how will this affect the on-field performance? Well, one is the offensive lineman, right?
Right.
He's not a cornerback. He's not a safety. So he can't physically do anything to Juju Smith-Schuster. I'm not talking about filtering any harm, but they're not lining up,
right,
against each other on that side of the field.
Correct.
With the TikTok dances, this is something that's been addressed by the coach, Mike Tomlin, already. You know what I'm saying? Did I like it? I didn't really care for it because I don't care for Juju Smith-Schuster like that.
Right.
Respectfully. Because whenever he plays us, Marlon Humphrey, Jimmy Smith, they shut him down.
Right.
Force fumbles. So that's how I feel about Juju Smith-Schuster. He's not a total run.
Not at all.
But in his defense, in the playoffs, he showed up.
Right.
You know what he did versus the Browns with all that TikToking? Here's what he did against the Browns. He had 13 catches, 157 receiving yards, 1 touchdown, right? Now, he did get targeted 19 times, but he was effective, especially in that second half. I know people want to talk about garbage time, but he was out there trying. He was doing fade routes the whole night. So as far as talent, he's a good receiver, but I feel like Alejandro Villanueva, he might have been a little bitter that he's no longer the
Right.
Steelers, because the Steelers are a winning organization.
Yes.
But now use that fuel, okay, for us. Use that fuel to actually run block.
Right.
Now, there's a lot of Steelers fans out there that ever since we got him, or should I say, even before we acquired Villanueva, they're like, oh, he's not good. He's not a great pass blocker. Well, we're a run scheme offense.
Right.
And as you well know, offensive linemen, they prefer to run block.
Sure.
A lot easier to run block.
Right.
You get to push people, run down the field.
Because you're pushing forward, not trying to backpedal. And there's this 6'4", 245-pound defensive lineman that runs a 4.4, trying to run past you, and all you can do is backpedal. So I definitely feel it just logically makes sense. So that's
logically makes sense. So I feel like this is one of those situations where it's gonna. I think Juju, he can't really use it as necessarily like bulletin board material,
Right.
because he's not lining up against Villanueva. But it's nice. It's nice chatter.
right.
That's honestly how I feel. Maybe you feel different, but as a Ravens fan, that's how I feel. Like if it was Minka Fitzpatrick saying, "I don't respect Lamar's arm,"
Right. Right.
or like Mike Tomlin said,
Bulletin
"We
board
don't
material.
fear Lamar.
Right.
We respect him, but we don't fear him," or something like that. Ooh.
Right. Right. Right.
So that type of chatter, as a fan of Lamar and as a Ravens fan, that kind of puts my antennas up a little more than doing the Ravens. So that's how I feel.
Yeah, I didn't want to dwell on it too long. I just kind of wanted to get your opinion on it, honestly, because when I seen it, I was just like, "Ooh, the rivalry's getting spicier."
Play that young
Right. I was just like, "Oh snap! What he gonna do when they get on the field, bruh?" I just need him to keep that same energy when it comes to the actual football field. When you get out there, I don't want to see you looking timid, or you better go out there and do work, because you can't come out there and say, "I look forward to playing y'all," and then go out there and lay an egg or get worked out. And so I just looked at it. It was like, yo, it's a dope rivalry, and I look forward to seeing what happens in this upcoming season. I really am looking forward to this season. Next topic. So out of all of the quarterbacks that were drafted, I was specifically thinking about the top 5 quarterbacks that were drafted, but then there's a Davis Mills who was drafted by the Texans, the whole Deshaun Watson thing. So it leads me to ask, out of all of the ones who you've seen get drafted, or even the unsigned free agents, who do you see going in day one and being a starter?
Lawrence. I know it's the chalk answer, but I have to go with Trevor Lawrence because that's the guy that Urban Meyer really wanted.
Right.
I make sure they do everything for him to make sure that he succeeds. But I'm also looking at market, right? The Jaguars, they suck. Like, let's be real.
True.
I'm sorry.
They're so bad. They just hired. They just signed.
Yeah.
Your boy.
Yeah, they not my boy.
Hey.
I was a huge fan because of college.
They signed your boy, bro. That's your boy, bro.
Tim Tebow picking up on your waiver wire as a fantasy outlet. No, but Urban Meyer, he really wanted Trevor Lawrence, but I'm also looking at the market, right? And we're looking at the Jacksonville Jaguars. Their expectation has always been well, they haven't won anything since really that 2017, 2018 season.
True.
And they have Leonard Fournette, Calais Campbell, Jalen Ramsey, Mark Brunell is probably the best quarterback they've had in history. Keenan McCardell, Jimmy Smith, Tony Boselli at the back in the 90s, man, in the early 2000s. So the Jacksonville Jaguars, they're going to set Trevor Lawrence up with DJ Chark, guys like that too. But he's not in the market, a big market with a whole lot of pressure like Zach Wilson.
Right.
Zach Wilson played at BYU, I believe.
Yes, correct.
BYU, you're going from BYU, okay, the level of competition that you played, and you're going into New York, not the football Giants, the New York Jets market.
Right.
Like they crucify quarterbacks.
Yes.
Geno Smith, Sam Darnold,
Mark Sanchez.
Right. He has Corey Davis. I mean, cool, that's nice. Corey Davis is number one receiver.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Le'Veon Bell's gone.
True.
You know what I'm saying? CJ Mosley, he's there, but he always gets injured. The former Raven.
And Lavernius Cole is not walking through that door.
Right. Lavernius Cole is not walking through the door.
Curtis Martin is not walking through that door.
Wayne Corbett, Keyshawn Johnson, Bill Parcells.
Nope.
None of those guys, the assistant Bill Belichick at the time, those do not walk through the door. But I feel like Trevor Lawrence, because he's played in big games, championship level games, he has the mobility, right there. So I feel like just his skill set, his overall skill set, right, and what they're going to try to actually surround him with, and the marketplace not being too big, the lights not being too big.
Right.
I feel like that will be a better transition for him, and I just feel like he's best fit to start right now. But I also think that the Fields one is very, very intriguing.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Because I look at Fields and I look at guys like Trubisky, I look at Cohen, I look at guys like Hill, and I'm like, these guys, they're not good.
Right.
Like we saw what Trubisky still was.
Right.
Like you telling me that Justin Fields can't be his floor.
Right. Right.
That can't be his floor. So I think between those two, between Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields, those are the guys. And also Justin Fields coming in with a chip on his shoulder. This may be something else too.
I actually have Justin Fields as my I do just from like knowing the Bears a little bit, I think that Dalton's gonna start. But should he start? No. Heck no. Hecky no. Just what he was able to do, I feel like we've seen the best football from him. So I'm cool with him being a backup, but this is not my starter. I'd rather have Justin Fields take his lumps. But I think that day one he comes in and is a more talented quarterback than Andy Dalton. And even if it was Mitch that was still there, like I still would take Justin Fields. And I think we still have Nick Foles on the roster. I would rather have him as well. I would rather have Justin Fields over him.
Foles is a proverbial backup. Really.
Right.
With the exception of being in Philly where everything was perfect for him.
Right. And so like with that, like I'd just much rather see him the 4.4 speed. Regardless of how explosive and twitchy, is still the ability to escape the pocket, his ability to run. Throw the ball on the run. The big arm down the field, and especially because, you can say what you want. It's not like the Bears are a slouch. Like they have talent. They have a Montgomery. They have a Tariq Cohen, Allen Robinson, who has not. It literally, yes. And so like then I'm trying to think, what's my man's name? The tight end they drafted from. He's like a 6'7".
I know what you're
route running tight end. And so it's like with that, there's a lot of talent on that team that I think that you would be doing yourself a disservice by starting Andy Dalton. And I would much rather see Justin Fields in that position. I do think that Davis Mills is going to be an interesting day one starter because he doesn't have a choice.
Right.
Like Deshaun Watson is not coming back to that team, and regardless, even if he ends up getting any kind of criminal charges or anything like that, to where he has to be suspended, regardless of what direction that goes in, I'm not even going to address that situation. We're gonna wait. We're gonna wait for the facts on that one before we even give an opinion. But as far as just that situation, regardless of what happens with Deshaun Watson, he's not coming back. So now you draft Davis Mills, who really, if you think about it, it wouldn't be a bad thing. I don't even think he gets to the second round if one, the style of quarterback coming out of college nowadays, we all like the Russell Wilsons, Deshaun Watson, Trevor Lawrence is mobile to a certain degree, even Daniel Jones. There's so many different Justin Fields. There's so many different quarterbacks. Trey Lance. Lamar Jackson. It's just so many different mobile quarterbacks where Davis Mills is that stand in the pocket quarterback. But when he came out of high school, he was the number one recruited quarterback in or high school recruit, high school prospect. So I could see him coming in, and he had a knee injury, which is one of those things that led to him not having. So he really only had that 1 year, but he tore his knee up. So it's like if he could come back and be the player that they think that he was supposed to be coming out of high school, and then he has the 1 year at Stanford, comes into the league. Now he's a second round. He could possibly be the day one starter. I can see him coming in and being successful. It's just a matter to moderately successful because that organization is trash. But I can at least see him be. I can at least see him be the day one starter. So like he would probably be the most surprising one out of all the ones that we saw get drafted.
But they got rid of like a lot of. Wow.
Yeah, there's no that Will Fuller is not there no more.
Mascots getting beat up after the game.
Right.
Like come on, Texans.
Help.
They might be the new Raiders, the old Raiders, not the old.
Well, 2005 to like 2015 the Raiders. Yeah.
They old Raiders. Like, what about Jim Plunkett and all that?
Yeah, no, not that old. Like when I was in high school, like those Raiders, because the last time the Raiders were good up until like at least we've been competitive over the last couple of years, but prior to that, it was the Super Bowl run and then nothing for like 12 years after that.
We're not talking about the Raiders when they were still showing episodes of Sanford and Son.
Right. But we're gonna use that opportunity to get up out of here with that one. Canelo wins in a dominating fashion, which he should. I'm not surprised. But at this point, I've seen there's been talks about them finishing the trilogy with Triple G, or him unifying the middleweight division. I would say specifically the super middleweight division is the belts that he has, and so he took belt from Billy Joe Saunders. Regardless of how you feel about how that fight went, he should have won that. I wasn't surprised. I didn't even want to see him fight him, honestly. But at this point, I think there's no other fight for him outside of Caleb Plant. But in your personal opinion,
so it's funny,
who should he fight?
Yeah, it's funny we're mentioning Caleb Plant because I was actually just, I have Caleb Plant right in front of me, 28 years old, Canelo's 30. Excuse me. So, the age difference, there's obviously 2 years age difference, but Caleb Plant, is, you can say, prime fight.
Right.
21-0, he's undefeated. You're talking about super middleweight class. So everything's primed up. And Canelo, out of his own mouth, said that it's a fight that he himself would like to make happen. So I'm looking at that, and all signs point toward that, being a real possibility. Excuse me. That being said, though, when we're talking about excitement, right?
Right.
What, we're talking about big money, right?
Big money.
Lord of the Rings. I'm gonna use an analogy. I don't know if you're a Lord of the Rings fan. I know some people like Harry Potter. I fell asleep on the sorcerer's time, but I'm a Lord of the Rings. I like Lord of the Rings. Look, what if the king never returned? Okay.
Right.
You can't stop the Lord of the Rings when Gandalf gets sucked up into the abyss. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
You need to return the king.
Right.
You need the end of the trilogy. You need Frodo, bringing peace to Middle Earth. I'm not trying to go off script. We need all that. You know what I'm saying? When he looks up and he says, it's done.
Mm-hmm.
Or it's finished. Whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Right? We wouldn't have those classic lines without the trilogy.
True.
So I'm moving toward the trilogy.
Right.
See, look, there's 3 G's in his name.
Right.
It's biblical. So I want trilogy because the fighting styles, man, they're so cool.
Yeah.
The punching, punching power. It was just great. And you had so many people who were like, no, Triple G won. No,
Right. Triple G won the first fight.
It's classic.
I could argue on the second fight, but
It's barbershop talk.
true.
Barbershop talk.
We do.
We like Rocky 1, 2, and 3.
Right.
6 and whatever.
Yeah. When he fought Antonio Tarver, I was just like, bro, what is this?
So for me personally, if I'm a new fan of boxing,
True.
if I'm a casual boxer, I want to see something that's going to excite me. So I'm going to actually go with the trilogy in terms of the excitement factor. So that's why it's we make cases arguments.
Right.
So I'm actually more leaning toward, Triple G. Yeah, sure, Caleb Plant resume looks cool.
Right.
But Caleb Plant, he ain't gonna be
He's not a
40
big name.
or anything
Yeah,
like
nah,
that.
he's not a big name.
He'll be there.
Yeah.
Triple G, if you're talking about draw, let's go with the trilogy. Let's finish this, and then we can really see who the true king is. That's like Return of the King. We can see who the true king is.
True. I can see that because with how you bring up Caleb Plant's age. Canelo being 30, Caleb Plant being 28. All right, cool. Go fight Triple G in September. Close that trilogy. Regardless of what happens, now at that point, if you win, which he should, Triple G's 39 years old, probably will be 40 by that time. I'm not sure as far as when his birthday is, but I know currently today he is 39 years old. So with that, you're fighting a 39-year-old, which arguably a lot of people, even me in particular, he is 39. It's he just turned 39. And so with me, I had Triple G winning the first fight. Some of my friends as well. The second fight, now that's the fight where I would lean more toward Canelo. The only issue I would have had in that moment with him, the only issue I had with him winning that one is the fact that they gave that a draw where Triple G won the first fight.
Yeah.
So why isn't this one a draw when I just pretty much watched the same fight? And so I'm just like, all right, cool, whatever, man. Like, all right, he's the next big Mexican fighter. Like, all right, cool, I'll give him that. But don't treat my man out of this, out of his legacy when he was going undefeated up until that point. And so I can understand. I do like the excitement. Regardless, as much as I would like him to fight Caleb Plant, I can see him fighting Triple G. That would be a big draw. That trilogy was a really good fight. Both fights were high level fights, very big on as far as pay-per-view numbers. Right, big money. And he can always fight Caleb Plant. But if he don't fight Caleb Plant by next year, I don't want to hear nothing about this man supposed to be the GOAT or not even the GOAT, but the GOAT when it comes to Mexican fighters, because most Mexican fighters, they're not dodging anybody. And that's just historically through the heritage and culture of those styles of fighters. Like, we know they don't dodge anything.
So it could be a question between money and legacy.
Right. And I do think that the legacy part, I'm always going to say, get that bag first. So get the bag. Generational wealth, exactly. And then you can go ahead and do what you got to do as far as your legacy, because you both are still, when it comes to boxing terms, you're still in your prime at that point. So I'm cool with saying he got to fight Caleb Plant at some point, but I'm cool with seeing him fight Triple G, honestly. And so now, I'm trying to think, where we at right now?
Is it NBA?
Oh, let's talk baseball before we get to the NBA. Let's talk some baseball before we get to the meat and potatoes. So, baseball, it is spring. Season is in full swing now. My Cubs are in the middle of the pack right now. They're right around 500 baseball, but the Angels are not playing that well right now. I think they're 4 or 5 games under 500. But it's a long season. It's a very long season, 162 games, and I think they're playing a full season this season. So, but they decided to part ways with our Pujols, who you have how old is he? He is 41 years old. What is his batting average this year? Which is not very.
It's 190.
Which is awful. He's 41 years old, batting under 200, and at this point, he's most likely going to be a DH. Do you see him signing with anyone? Because his old coach for the Cardinals is now the manager of the White Sox, and he said, "No, he's not a good fit. We got better players over here. I don't need that guy." Do you see him being a big contributor on a championship team?
The better question is, as a championship team hiring for mascots?
Right. Because
I'm not going to disrespect it. I'm not going to disrespect the legend like that. I'm not going to disrespect the legend. Yeah. some people might be like, "How dare you say such a blasphemy
about our Pujols?"
Look, man, let me tell you something about Albert Pujols, man. Pujols, great player, all-star, 10-time all-star, right? Yeah, 10-time all-star, 3-time MVP, right? 2-time gold glove. But age and attrition, baseball, they always say father time's undefeated, but baseball is one of those sports where you can play a long-term period.
Right.
But if you're just playing as a designated hitter, the key is to come in and hit.
Right.
If you're not hitting well, what's the point?
Right.
I'm just being keeping it real, man. Like, now if you're still getting the bag and the team is willing to pay you a bag.
Right.
But at that point, I'm thinking they're just doing it to fill
the stands.
Fill the stands when fans come back, and all that kind of stuff. But then again,
Right.
So it depends on really what team he's going to. But I'm gonna be completely honest with you. Outside of veteran leadership and veteran leadership, right, and being a mentor to somebody,
right?
Sure, but if he wants to do that, then Albert Pujols can look into coaching, some form of coaching,
right,
at some type of level. You know what I'm saying? I'm not talking about intramurals. I'm talking about professional.
Right.
But it's just kind of the cards, man. I'm not saying. 198. It's not.
Yeah, that's abysmal.
It's abysmal at this point, man. And I still remember back when I was like in freaking middle school or like freshman year of high school, one of those when he signed that 10-year contract.
Oh yeah.
I was like, they get into these types of contracts,
right?
And I'm like, how much of that money is guaranteed? I'm like, guaranteed money. I'm like, man,
all of it.
All of it. I'm like, let me try out for baseball, and then I realized, well, I got to work on my softball game first.
Right. It's coming a lot slower.
Yeah, it's coming a lot slower, man. I'm like, I can't hit. I'm like, you struggle hitting that. Jenny Fitch, softball can't hit that, but she's great.
Right.
And you got the freaking John Smoltz style baseball pitches back in the day. I'm like, I can't hit them, so baseball's not my thing. But no, respectfully, Albert Pujols, I will never tell anyone to hang them up. I'm against telling players to hang them up unless they're a detriment to the team.
Right.
They're just not productive. It's on them. But if a club is not willing to pay him, then it's just
right.
I don't think he's going to be the player that's going to get a contender over the hump.
Not at all. Yeah, I think it's sad because we've when you go and look at his numbers, man, like he's been good for a long time. He has 3 MVPs, 2 Gold Gloves. He's won 2 World Series, bro. Like, as much as I didn't like him because he was directly in my division, you just got to respect him, man, because in his prime, he was putting up massive numbers.
Oh, yeah.
And so, like, it sucks to get to see him at 41 and he's batting underneath 200. But then when you go and look at, like, I got to see the other day, the Cubs were playing the Dodgers, and we had someone come up to bat, and he actually got the hit. But his batting average was worse than Albert Pujols' batting average. So it's like I can see him coming in, and that person was a rotational player. It's just like it goes along to. I seen something with Melo when the talks as far as Melo, why Melo wasn't being signed, and it was like Stephen A. said that some executives have came out and said like it hurt them to see Melo be a role player, which is not necessarily that player's fault. So it's like it sucks that Albert Pujols has been reduced to being a role player, but if he's cool with being that veteran leadership in the dugout, as well as coming in and being pitch hitting where you got a left-hander on the mound and you need some right-handed hitting, timely hitting in the playoffs, I don't see as long as he's willing to accept that and he's not looking to come in and be your starting first baseman, left field or third, or even your starting DH. Like, I do think that as long as he's willing to accept that role, I can see him continuing his career. But it's just at this point, those numbers are really awful. So I feel for him, but it's just the nature of the game. You get older, Father Time is undefeated. So
Father Time is clearly undefeated. And I always look at it, one more thing I wanted to add on that topic was when you have older guys like Pujols, you got to think about what younger guys, that could be called up, right, from the minors,
right,
whether someone getting drafted, so are they holding back?
Right.
That does happen. Even
True.
in the NBA, we look at certain people like there's still people talking about Isaiah Thomas.
Right.
Who is Isaiah Thomas be on the team? I love Isaiah Thomas. I respect his work ethic. Or excuse me, not. I don't want to say Isaiah Thomas. My bad. Jamal Crawford.
Right.
Both those guys are. But Jamal Crawford, he was cool in the bubble, but remember he pulled the hamstring. I'm like, that could have been a younger guy filling in his place.
Right.
I have a high level of reverence for Jamal Crawford.
Right. Right.
I think he should be in the Hall of Fame based on a 6-man
Right.
career. But you always got to think about there will always be a younger guy who's hungry, who just wants that opportunity that can produce for a team. And you can't stop what's destined, and you can't stop progression.
True.
So there we go.
Yeah. So with that, great segue into you want to talk MVP or you want to
MVP? Let's go MVP.
All right.
Really get to the meat and potatoes after.
And I actually did it this way. If you guys have noticed, there's still 30 minutes left in the show, and we have 2 topics left. So, and I did it that way because there is going to give us a lot of opportunity to break down a lot of the nuances within these topics. And so, with the MVP race, who is your NBA MVP?
All right. So, you guys ready for this? My NBA MVP of the year, okay, most valuable player is Chris Paul.
Okay.
Chris Paul. Now, I would like to sincerely apologize to Nikola Jokic, Joel Embiid, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Paul George, who doesn't get talked about enough, Kawhi Leonard. Anyone else I'm missing? Russell Westbrook, Zach LaVine.
You could argue Luka.
And
that's about it, bro. No, there's some other great players, but right. I don't know if you said Dame though, but because I do want to give Dame his love. Like I think that he gets way overshadowed too often.
He does. And I want to say, when I look at MVP, I say impact, right?
Yeah.
So impact, most valuable player.
I was gonna say, give him your criteria, bro. Let him know.
NBA criteria is the best player on the best team. I hate that criteria.
Right.
The reason why I hate that criteria is because Donovan Mitchell, right, was not in the MVP discussion talked about by ESPN or any of these other mainstream outlets, despite being the best player on the best team this season. Okay, like
True.
he just wasn't. Nobody was talking about Donovan Mitchell. And is that fair? You look at the best team, and sometimes the best team could be littered with. It could be a super team,
right?
Or like remember when they said Kevin Durant was not able or allowed to win MVPs while he was in the Golden State Warriors. Yet you awarded James Harden. Yet you awarded LeBron James,
right?
2 back-to-back MVPs with the Miami Heat.
Right.
So like, what is this? And then I look at the Kobe Bryant thing. I mentioned this on a prior episode. Kobe Bryant in 2006. You penalize Kobe Bryant, but then you award Russell Westbrook for having a historic season and with triple doubles.
Right.
And you're looking at his seeding. Right. I think he was like the 6th seed. Kobe was the 7th seed.
Right.
He scored 81 points. He averaged 40 points for an entire month. He did all these different historical things.
Right.
So, and that was the first time in the NBA history in over 30 years that the MVP didn't go to the player on the best team, the best player on the best team, or the number 1 seed.
Right.
So there's hypocrisy.
Right.
So I'm like, I still want answers for that. And Kobe made first team all defense. He joined Michael Jordan as the only 2 players in NBA history to average 35 plus points per game and make first team all defense. There's only been two players in NBA history to do that. Those are the only 2 guys.
Right.
So I look at Chris Paul, defensive impact. He can get steals. It's not always about numbers. Basketball is not playing Excel spreadsheets. But here's why Chris Paul is not MVP. I've always said Chris Paul has a case for MVP every single year because every single team he's been on, he's vastly raised the floor of that team. The floor, not necessarily the floor of the team. I saw a Phoenix Suns team last year go undefeated in the bubble, not make the playoffs. And I was like, these are young, hungry guys here. DeAndre Ayton,
right?
Young, up-and-coming big. He's working his defense, but they had Devin Booker,
right?
And then they had Javon Carter. I'm like, Javon, nah, that's not it.
Right.
But they were playing hard. And they
right.
Monty Williams. I'm like, if you pair Chris Paul with a Monty Williams, someone who was his former coach, and you put him on a team like the Phoenix Suns, they're a playoff team.
Right.
He was on an OKC team that had lost two of the top 10 players, one of them being a former league MVP in Russell Westbrook, and a top 10 player in Paul George, who finished in top 3 in MVP and Defensive Player of the Year voting in 2018. They were both off the team. OKC was projected across all platforms to miss the playoffs.
Right.
They were a 5 seed.
Right.
I was like, now give him AD.
Right.
That LeBron has. I'm not knocking LeBron, but give him AD. They're probably a 1 seed.
Right.
So I'm thinking, okay, you take that team with Shea Alexander and you get them to the playoffs as a top 5 in the West. Now you go to the Phoenix Suns team, right? Who has a Devin Booker, who's I actually think they're okay. I'll say he's a little better than Shea Alexander, debatable.
Right.
And you added DeAndre Ayton, so they have a quality big man.
Right.
And they're a 1 seed. I didn't predict it. Like I didn't predict this. Our boy Adrian's like, yo, Kai, watch out for the Phoenix Suns. Still believe in them. Second round exit if they're going to make this against swept. But I thought they could be a top 4 seed.
Yeah.
I'm like a top 4 seed. I said their floor is like a 6 seed.
I said top 3. I said top 4. Actually, I think I said top 4. I said top 4.
But could we predict, and I know it's COVID and different things and injuries.
Right.
Still, even with all that, we couldn't predict them being a number 1 seed.
Correct.
So my little soliloquy here is that Chris Paul gets the impact every single year. He's been doing this since his days in New Orleans.
Right. Right.
Like, come on, man. So he's my MVP, and I think Nikola Jokic, I feel like his impact is kind of what AD was having last year, not defensively.
Right. Right. Right.
But if you
the all around game,
like, you just can't stop the dude. He can pick and pop. He can beat you inside. He can play make.
Yeah.
So I watched him
lead the break.
Yeah, the only team that really seems to kind of neutralize him is when AD's there and the bigs and the Lakers are there. But he's just giving it to everyone. So for me, Ralph, Chris Paul is my MVP, and you can have the floor.
I actually had I have Chris Paul as my second.
Okay.
Because I wrote down 3.
He's the first.
And so pretty much and so like I don't want to or even make it seem like what Jokic is doing is not like great, monumental, or amazing, impactful, or whatnot, because I was looking at his numbers when Jamal Murray went down. And so he's been averaging like 32 points a game, over 11 rebounds, almost 12, 13 rebounds. His assist numbers have gone down, but his point scoring has gone up. And so as of right now, he's averaging 26, 11, and 8 with one or two steals a game. But he's also been playing every game. So, and that's the one thing that, like, I understand for people that aren't going to give that to Joel Embiid. The problem I have with that is that Joel Embiid, his team is first in the East. You can say what you want, but as far as NBA.com's power rankings, they're first in the NBA as far as the power rankings. When you watch them play, it's just the eye test for me. And that's one of the things for me as far as the criteria. I do look at how well your team is playing, because I'm not just going to go out there and be like, all right, you can be a scrub averaging 30 on a trash team because you're the best scorer on a team that's bad. But if you got your team at first in the East, where the East has a lot of talent now, it's not just LeBron, one team, and then a bunch of trash in the East. So it's like there's a lot of talent in the East now. You got them first. You're averaging 29, 11 with 3 assists, 1 steal, and 2 blocks a game. And so I just think, like, with that, he's only played 49 games as of right now. There's 3 games left in the season. I do want to preface that with a lot. So if numbers matter to you, some things could change.
He's doing it on great efficiency.
But yeah,
I think I saw the number 1 rated player efficiency rating in the NBA with 31.
Right.
So, like, he's just really efficient despite the lack of another scoring.
Right.
One of the 3 scoring options, obviously Michael Porter.
Right.
Going to kind of add that to your little case right there.
And so with that, like yeah, you can say, well, he has Ben Simmons, but it's like on the scoring side, There's Tobias is the only the second predominant scorer that you could say on that team. So but the team is good at the end of the day, but he's that driving force behind it. He's got his team with a better record, while also putting up staggering numbers. So for me, the eye test shows me that he's the most dominant player this year. His team is playing well, number one in power ranking, according to NBA.com. And then his numbers, and it's just like, yo, it makes it hard for me to try to say where, all right, as of right now, he played 49 games. If this was an 82 game season, the most he could play is probably 60. So just to put that into some kind of context, because people will try to act like he's only played like 30 games this year, and it's like, yo, he played 60%, 65% of the season. So it's like, and then he had that whole issue with COVID because of his barber.
Yeah.
Which was weird. I think he ended up missing like a game or two, and then come to find out he didn't even have COVID. So like, I just think there's a lot of things that went into that for me, I understand why people would give it to Jokic, because the best ability that a person can have is availability. And so he's played every game. The numbers that he's putting up, he could possibly average a triple-double sometime, and for that to be a big that's doing that is phenomenal. So I understand why people would go with him. Chris Paul, I love Chris Paul. Sometimes it's hard for me because it's kind of hard for me to argue when your numbers aren't
right.
Like when your numbers don't support how great you are. And so I do think that, but you can't deny what you said earlier. Like when he comes to the team gets significantly better.
And there's locker room presence and
right.
intangibles, and that's one of those things. But that's something that I'm big on. You know, and I know obviously Jordan had examples, Kobe had examples, Magic Johnson, right?
Right.
So there's certain times. That's why I say stats is a assessment of your productivity,
right?
But they're not everything. I use them as a tool, almost like analytics.
Right.
It's just how I kind of like view it, because I look at intangibles and all that. Because you could be, I don't want to bash that guy some because he just surpassed a record. But let's say you get a lot of triple doubles, right?
Right.
But people don't want to play with you.
Right.
You know, that was Russell Westbrook's prior assessment. Now it's different, right? I think he's a good teammate back in the day, you know. So it's like you get a lot of triple doubles, but it's like, okay, but are you not a cancer in the locker room, but like, how are you affecting the play of the other teammates on the floor?
Right.
You know, are they growing with you? Things of that nature. So that's kind of what I mean. Like with Chris Paul, he really.
Right. Because I think that to kind of talk about Russell Westbrook just a little bit.
Shout out to him.
Right, because he is balling out of his mind, like on a whole nother level. But I think that this started with the year where Paul George went and got to the third in MVP voting. And I just had this conversation with Tar the other day, and he disagreed with me. And I was just like, honestly, bro, like when it came down to it, yes, in the playoffs, you got to ramp it up. So in his mind, all right, cool, I got to up my scoring. But for majority of that season, the reason why Paul George was able to do that is I'm gonna play through him. I'm not gonna try to go out there and get 30 every night, and he's averaging 30. No, I'm gonna go out there now. He still had a high amount of shot attempts compared to where he's at now? I think now he's 100% comfortable taking the back seat and just running the team and getting people involved. You can see Bradley Beal is playing very well off of him. But I do think that it started with that team and that season with him. And so I do want people to look at that, because this isn't the first time. Even last year, he played very well. It's just that team was poorly built.
And I think also to his defense, injury. He had a quad injury that he was finally just now recovering from, and I knew he was injured last year in Houston. I do blame him for engaging in a personal battle with Damian Lillard, which he severely lost, and he didn't show up in Game 7. Shot 11 for 31, which is like 33%.
Right.
Paul George shot 70%, guys. For all those people that want to get on Paul George, I'm not saying he's infallible, but it did happen. So I do, but he did. Russell Westbrook suffered an injury, and so that's actually, to your point, I agree.
Right.
Because I'm thinking, Now, maybe what if he was healthy? I still think he can engage in the game better.
Right.
I think maybe his numbers statistically, his efficiency would be a lot higher.
Right.
But he was deferring to Paul George throughout the season, and Paul George actually led the NBA in the regular season that year. There was a stat in game-winning shots.
Right.
So in the fourth quarter, he was going to him. So I
Right.
actually agree with you when you're talking about with your conversation with Tar. That Russell Westbrook, this is nothing new. He started this about 2-3 seasons ago.
Right.
And now I think changing the scenery, health,
Right.
you know, maybe his relationship with Beal is just
Right.
you know. Really cool.
And so I'm kind of curious to see what happens with the MVP. To go back to what we were talking about, I am kind of curious to see what happens with the whole MVP race. I'm not gonna be surprised either way, honestly. The thing that I'm happy about is someone who it'll be a first time winner. So, excuse me. Yeah, it'll be a first time winner. So, like for that, I'm kind of excited to see that because it's there's so much talent in the league, which is something we talk about. That's why we try not to talk about like a couple weeks ago I wanted to talk about the whole Dr. J thing. And I understood where you were coming from, but I kind of wanted to use that opportunity to bring up two other people, which is where I was coming from with that. That also didn't get put on that list, but nobody's arguing or upset about that. We only talking about one person in particular.
They always
Right. And so I'm just like, all right, it is what it is. But
they didn't want to see the flames of my EYE. Shout out to
But yeah, man, like this play-in is gonna get real interesting. For me, I kind of look at things and COVID, like I talked about before we got on set, is COVID ran through some teams that are in the league, bro, and it's like it's unfair. Injuries is always a thing, but when you go in and they have 2 months off before they played again, 2 months off, COVID. Then the strenuous act of playing through a whole season, a 72-game season, I can understand why some people would be upset as far as the play-in. Like, all right, I played 72 games. I feel like, and that's almost a full season. It's not like they played half a season and then there's a play-in. But I do think that the extra fact that they didn't have a full off season as well as COVID, I understand them having a play-in. Now I switch myself to fan mode. I love the play-in. I'm not going to argue it. I'm not going to argue more competitive basketball, especially high stakes basketball. And so,
especially when people are like, "Oh, we need sport. We need something to do." I don't want to continue to watch HBO Max, which I'm not shouting HBO, shouting down HBO Max. It's pretty nice if you have it.
Right.
But yeah, you know what I'm saying.
Right. I feel it. I feel that, bro. 100%. But yeah, like I'm always going to be I'm always going to be a huge proponent for more basketball, more sports. And so with that, like I kind of asked the question. I've given my piece, but to you.
Well, so I was having some technical difficulties. While I speak on it, can you actually pull up the rules for the play-in? So for our viewers and listeners, we can actually kind of break down with the play-in kind of the titles. I believe on NBA.com or ESPN, you can find a quick little synopsis of the play-in, so everyone kind of has a better idea of what teams are eligible for the play-in, when the play-in starts, and kind of how it goes. But while Ralph is pulling that up, my view, I'll take it from the fans' perspective first before I get into how the NBA plays. From a fan's perspective, I'm going to agree with you.
Right.
I actually believe that the play-in is great.
Right.
From a fan's perspective, in terms of just natural viewership, you're getting more basketball to watch.
Right.
You know, pretty much. And now you have teams that normally wouldn't have a chance per se, have a chance to get into the playoffs.
Right.
And what we saw last year with the Phoenix Suns, you actually get a chance to see some players that you normally don't see.
Right.
So while all these other teams are resting and waiting, right, you get to see the Devin Bookers of the world.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? You get to see the Gary Trent Juniors. I know it's not, a Dame, but
right.
You're getting the chance to see full-fledged teams.
Right.
And it's as the closest as you're going to get to NCAA March Madness basketball
style, which creates a lot of excitement, right, because you can, if for anybody for the people that have not played basketball, it's the greatest shooters have bad shooting nights.
Yes.
So like it's the greatest shooters have bad shooting nights, regardless if it's pressure, mental, or just the ball's just not going in the hole that night. And so it's going to be a big deal. So I got the rules up in front of us. So So with the NBA play-in tournament rules, it'll be the number 7 seed will face the number 8 seed in each conference, East and West. The winner of that game becomes the 7th seed in the 2021 finals. Now, for the 8th seed, it'll be the number 9 seed faces the 10th seed in each conference. The loser of that game is eliminated from playoff contention. The loser of the 7 and 8 game then plays the winner of the 9 and 10 game for the 8th and final seed in the playoffs. Now, I also wrote it down in my notes. Currently, if the play-in was to start today in the West, you got the Lakers at 7, Warriors at 8, Grizzlies at 9, Spurs at 10. The Lakers, Warriors, Grizzlies are all shoo-ins for the play-in game. On the East, and the Spurs and Pelicans are the two fighting for that last spot. But if you go and look at the standings, it's going to be hard for the Pelicans to be able to qualify. No Zion.
Now, some people do believe in the conspiracy theory, and I would say there's some truth to some things, that the plan was made for the Pelicans to get Zion Williamson in.
I do understand. I don't think it's specifically for Zion, because I do think that there's some young talent that are on those teams that are in that range that we want to see John in the playoffs. We want to see Zion. We want to see De'Aaron Fox to a certain degree. There's some people, yeah, like me. I want to see that. Like I would like to see that. Like I would love to see Buddy Hield and De'Aaron Fox and Tyrese Halliburton go at it with a Ja Morant or a Steph Curry or or the Spurs. And so like
De'Aaron Fox and Ja Morant, which is they're both up and down.
Right. And so I would love to watch that, because they're both just burners, bro. And so with that, like I love it from that standpoint. But I'm gonna go to the East at this point now. Celtics at 7. They got a hard, tough break today. It was announced Jaylen Brown will be out indefinitely with a torn ligament in his wrist.
Prayers up to Jaylen Brown.
Phenomenal season, Brody. You did your thing. All-star team. I was thinking about it today. He's the first person in my head as far as like most improved, but that's one of those things where I gotta look at that a little bit more. But yeah, most definitely. True. So I'm kind of curious to see what happens with that, as far as what that award and his accolades. But yeah, shout out to you, man. Tough break, but the Hornets are in the 8th spot. LaMelo coming back from injury, so that's going to be interesting. The Pacers playing very well. Karis LeVert leading the way. Malcolm Brogdon, Sabonis, and then the Wizards. We just talked about Russell Westbrook and the tear that he's been on, as well as triple-double. Then you got Brad Beal can go off for 50, and then that young cast. So with those games are all teams that are not. They're seeding within the 7 to the 9 spot. Now, that 7 to 10 spot. The Bulls are in the 11th spot. I do want to put that out there, but it's very unlikely. There's 3 games left, and we're down. I think we're back 3. We're back 3 games, or we're back 2.5 games. So the likelihood of that happening, of us getting even into the play-in, it sucks, because we had a moment where we're not even injured, COVID. And so, like, that's why I'm a huge proponent for the play-in, because at that point, we were very close. I think we were in the 9 or 10 spot, and then Zach LaVine got COVID. So then he had to miss like 2-3 weeks to eventually be able to come back and play. Now he's back, and we've won 3-4 games in a row, but it doesn't matter. We were so far back because we lost our main scorer, our all-star. We lost our all-star, and so. Unlike that, but to go back to not to go on that tangent, but to go back to the point, I just wanted to give some kind of back as far as the why I'm okay with the play-in game, as in this example, with some context.
Yeah, so I was going to say first talk about why it was kind of created. There's a lot of conspiracy theories, but I'm going to outright say it. Do you believe that sports is a business?
Yes.
Do you believe it's an entertainment business?
Yes.
So I always tell people this: all sports is a form of business. It's just an entertainment business. Do you think that people just hire people they have players and those people that they hired, all that, they just chill. Heck no, man.
Right.
No, they wanted to get Zion in there. Now, that wasn't the initial reason why it was created. And I'm not knocking Zion because Zion's great. He was on my fantasy team, so shout out to the champions over here. But that was fun. Me and Ralph were in the same league.
Yeah. Oh, you won?
Yeah, I won.
I was sleeping this morning, but I seen y'all talking about it. But yeah, congrats, bro.
Thanks, man. But I do believe that it was due to the COVID situation. That was the initial reason why it was made.
Right.
There was what we call incentives, and one of the incentives was if Zion's team gets in.
Right.
It's entertainment business.
Right.
Like scheduling. I feel like scheduling is made in such a way. I'm not talking about rigging games, right?
Right.
I feel like scheduling is made up a certain way. It's why in the NFL, the Ravens were so good during Lamar's MVP season. What did they do? They awarded them the most primetime games, right?
Right.
In the NFL the following season, which was 5. So these are all things that happen. People have to accept it as an entertainment business. Now, as a fan, we get to see guys like LaMelo Ball. I didn't even think about that.
Right.
So I think from the fan's perspective, it is great. Now, from a player's perspective, Ramon James came out and he was against the play-in game. He said someone who came up with that plea needs to be fired or whatever. But he was cool with it when it benefited him last year.
Right.
See, I had to look at the camera. and he's on my favorite team. But it's a situation where, you're a 7 seed, you play an 8 seed, right?
Right.
Okay. Now you got to think about the games in between the 7 and the 8 during the normal NBA season, and then you have this team that has a chance, a 9 and 10 seed, who wouldn't even be in the play-in. If you lose the first game, has a chance to take that spot.
Right.
So, in all due fairness, that is where real, I think, animosity or dissent or whatever you want to call it, like, people being upset, the players, where I feel like there is some level of, I guess, non-fairness to it, and degree if it was a normal NBA season, because those games could be a 9 to 10 game gap.
Right.
I know Gilbert Arenas actually wrote an essay on his Instagram page, which I thought were all good points. You're like, oh, no one's going to read that essay.
Right.
He made some really good points on why the players themselves would be upset about that. Now, if you're in a losing position, yeah, sure, you like it.
Right.
So, but all is not fair, or should I say, all's fair in love and war, but the world isn't fair.
Right. True.
You know what I'm saying? So I feel like the players and the fans, there could be two different perspectives. So I don't really think there's a definitive, it's good, it's
right.
bad.
True.
It's going to benefit who it needs to benefit.
Right.
If you're looking for some form of entertainment and you love the game of basketball, you like this.
Right.
If you're a player who's like, oh, well, I could lose to this 8 seed when I was 7 seed, but let's say that LeBron James, for all intents and purposes, Father Time's undefeated, he's just like really banged up, or AD goes down and screaming like Tina Turner, which he does a lot. And he goes down, because he got a forearm shiver to the back, okay? And he's out with back spasm for 2 weeks, and now he has to play against the Warriors, and Steph Curry comes in and drops a 60-piece McNugget on him.
Right.
Like, now you have this lowly team have a chance to, win. But then you can look at it another way. Strategically, sometimes falling back
right
can help you avoid a certain matchup.
Right.
So there's so many different ways, but I think what it is at the end of the day, it adds another element to the NBA, right?
Yeah.
And the fans are your most, should I say this? I want to word this properly. The NBA's sole responsibility is to put the best product on the field, and the Players Association, right?
Yeah.
Is supposed to take care of the players.
Right.
So if the players did not want this
wouldn't happen.
Fight for it.
Right.
So, but as a fan, we love it.
Right. Yeah, it's definitely going to make some interesting matchups.
Player props.
Exactly. Before we get up out of here, though, but I am going to ask you straight up, who's your 7 and 8 at the end of all of this? You got to make your prediction. Who's your 7 and 8 at the end of on both sides?
So my 7, right? I was looking at this because I think the Lakers are the Lakers currently the 7th seed. They moved up to 6.
They're 7. They're a game and a half away from the Blazers, and then the Blazers have that they actually play the Blazers within these last 3 games, I think, and then the Blazers have the tiebreaker.
And You know who's the 8 seed? Because I already had
The Warriors. The Warriors are the 8 seed.
Okay, so if the Lakers lose to the Warriors, they would go and play the winner of the 9-10 game.
Which I think is going to be the Grizzlies. Jaren Jackson's back.
Yeah. So here's the thing. I believe that the Lakers feel like they can beat the brakes off the Suns. No offense to them.
Yeah.
And I told our friend this before. Now the Suns might get a game,
Right.
But they were trying to double AD, right? And some people are like, oh well, the Suns trying to lose. No, man, they can't defend a healthy AD.
Right.
But also Utah, right? The Lakers can beat Utah too.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But the Utah has really good defense. They have 3-point shooting. They have Jordan Clarkson. So I'm gonna go with the Lakers are gonna be that 7 seed.
Okay.
I do believe in my heart of hearts, and this isn't knocking any, trying to call people cowards or all that. But strategically, I believe LeBron James doesn't want to play the tougher matchup for the Lakers, the Clippers in the first round.
No, nah.
Like, do you want to play the Clippers in the first round? No, and they're a motivated team this year.
Right.
That's also a matchup. I mean, do we really? I mean, some people I want to see in the first round, but I would rather see that in the Western Conference Finals.
Right. Facts.
People feel like they were robbed. So I'm going to the 7th seed, the Lakers, and the 8th seed is what's it? The Blazers have a chance. No, the Warriors.
The Warriors.
Yeah, I can see the Warriors getting in there because I think we talked about this on another show. I think I have to give Steph the respect that he can at least get to that 8th seed. That's all I wanted him to do in the beginning of the year.
Right. I'm actually gonna go as far as the West. I'm gonna go Lakers at 7, Grizzlies at 8.
Oh, so you have the Warriors missing the
Yeah. My hot take. Honestly, I think that the getting Jaren Jackson back, as well as the way Ja is a. I love his fight, his aggressiveness, and he missed it. So it's like now I have an opportunity with my guys. I got Brooks, I got Jaren Jackson, like I just mentioned. So like I got my big, I got my running mate. Let's go.
In the Eastern Conference?
And then on the East, you got my laptop about to die. But in the East, you got who was it?
The Wizards are the 9.
The Wizards are in the 10. The Pacers are in the 9. The Hornets are at 8. The Celtics are at 7. And I got the Hornets. The Hornets are going to beat the Celtics. Unless this is the perfect opportunity for Jason Tatum. If people think you're that guy, be that guy. Go get that dub. All you got to do is play one game. You win that game. You get to still be in the playoffs. Now you're going to get smacked by the Nets, but that I digress. That's a whole. Yeah, he saves his job, and that's really all that matters. And then at the 8th,
I got Russ getting in to play the Nets at some point. I don't know.
I do have I just don't see the way that Russ is playing, bro. Yeah. And so I do think I do have them getting in at the 8th spot. And so the Wizards will play the Sixers.
That should be fun.
Which will be fun.
Great show.
All right. But thank you all for watching. It was a great episode. Happy as all get up that we didn't have any kind of technical difficulties, Wi-Fi issues, and nothing like that. But it was great, guys. Thank you all for watching. Holla.